10 years. A decade since the world first saw Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson together, bound by chemistry, controversy, and a story that changed both of their lives forever. But time, as it turns out, doesn't erase everything. Some stories just wait, quietly, for the right moment to be told. When Jamie and Dakota stepped onto that red carpet again, side by side after a full decade, the world froze. The crowd screamed, flashes erupted, and yet, for a second, it was silent. Because their eyes met, the same way they did 10 years ago, and something unspoken passed between them. Something real. People online couldn't stop talking. Why do they still look at each other that way? What are they hiding? The truth, it seems, has been waiting patiently all these years. Back in 2015, when 50 Shades of Grey was released, no one, not even they, could have predicted what it would do to their lives. Overnight, Jamie and Dakota became the faces of desire, fantasy, and taboo. Every scene was dissected, every glance analyzed. They weren't just acting. They were living inside an emotional storm that blurred the line between fiction and reality. On set, there was intensity, electric, unfiltered, almost too real. But behind that intensity, there was also fear. Fear of judgment, fear of losing control, fear of being misunderstood. The world wanted to see them as Christian Grey and Anastasia Steele, but when the cameras stopped rolling, they were just Jamie and Dakota. Two people trying to survive an experience far bigger than themselves. Jamie, newly married and under immense scrutiny, found it difficult to navigate fame's tidal wave. The press wanted to know everything. What does your wife think? Is Dakota too close? His every word was twisted, every gesture turned into gossip. Dakota, on the other hand, faced her own kind of loneliness, branded as the fantasy girl, objectified by headlines, criticized by strangers. In that chaos, they found something rare: trust. They learned to protect each other. When Jamie was cornered by harsh questions, Dakota would step in, smile, and steer the interview away. When Dakota faced online criticism, Jamie defended her publicly, calling her the bravest person I know. What began as on-screen intimacy grew into a bond that transcended the set, one that neither fame nor distance could completely erase. And yet, when the trilogy ended, so did their chapter together, at least publicly. They moved on with their lives. Jamie focused on family, on proving himself beyond 50 Shades. Dakota dove into new roles, from indie films to blockbusters, earning respect as an actress who refused to be typecast. Years passed, but the connection lingered. Whenever one spoke about the other, there was a tone, soft, nostalgic, unfinished. Jamie once said, "Dakota and I went through something that only we understand." Dakota, in another interview, smiled gently and whispered, "He's a part of me, whether I like it or not." For years, fans kept hoping for a reunion, and now, 10 years later, it finally happened. The world watched as they stood side by side again, older, wiser, but still undeniably connected. They laughed quietly on stage, shared private smiles, and at one point, Dakota's hand brushed his arm. It was subtle, but the internet exploded. Then came the moment that set everything ablaze. During a joint interview marking the film's 10th anniversary, the host asked the question everyone had avoided for a decade. Was there ever something real between you two? The audience held its breath. Jamie looked at Dakota, eyes soft, lips parting like he had rehearsed this moment for years. She gave a tiny nod, almost permission. He smiled, that same slow, shy smile fans remembered, and said quietly, "Back then, we couldn't say everything. But now, maybe it's time." The room went still. No one dared to interrupt. The cameras zoomed in, capturing a silence thicker than words. Dakota looked down, her expression tender but heavy, and whispered, "We were just two people trying to protect something fragile." The world felt the shift, that delicate balance between truth and memory, love and loyalty. After a decade of questions, maybe the answer wasn't scandal at all. Maybe it was something purer, something that had survived in silence for 10 long years. And as the interview ended, Jamie placed a hand on Dakota's shoulder. She turned, smiled, and said softly, "Some things never really fade." The clip went viral instantly, not because of what they said, but because of what they didn't. Something was still there, something the world could feel, even after 10 years apart. Because sometimes, time doesn't close a story. It only brings you back to finish the part that was left unsaid. After that interview went viral, the internet turned into chaos. Clips of Jamie and Dakota's exchange flooded every platform: TikTok edits, emotional fan tributes, and thousands of comments saying the same thing. You can still feel the love. But for once, the noise wasn't about gossip. It was about something deeper, a shared realization that what existed between them had never been ordinary. In the days that followed, both of them remained silent. No public statements, no clarifications, just quiet. Then, a week later, a new video appeared. A sit-down conversation recorded for a special documentary titled, 10 Years Later, The Truth Behind the Gray. It was raw, unedited, and deeply human. Jamie sat first, wearing a simple black sweater. There were no stylists, no red carpet glitz. Just him, older, more grounded, and, perhaps, finally ready. Dakota joined moments later. She smiled softly, nervously. There was a pause, the kind of silence that carries 10 years of words never said. The interviewer asked the question everyone was waiting for. "When you said there were things you couldn't talk about, what did you mean?" Jamie inhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the floor before looking up. "Back then, we were thrown into something bigger than either of us understood. People saw passion, chemistry, controversy. What they didn't see was how much we relied on each other just to survive it." He glanced at Dakota, who nodded. "It was lonely," she added quietly. "We were judged, criticized, and people forgot we were real. Jamie was my safe space. We built a friendship that no one could touch, because no one else lived that story but us." The interviewer pressed gently, "So it was never romantic?" Dakota smiled, that same shy smile from a decade ago. "Love comes in many forms," she said. "What we had was real, just not the kind people wrote about. We loved each other in a way that didn't need to fit any definition." Jamie leaned back, his expression soft. "That's the truth," he said. "We protected each other. That's what no one knew. That's what we couldn't say." And there it was, the hidden truth the world had been chasing for 10 years. Not a confession of secret romance, but an admission of something far more profound: emotional loyalty. They had been each other's armor, holding one another up through the most chaotic chaos. Dakota's voice broke slightly as she recalled the hardest moments. "There were days I wanted to quit. I felt so exposed, so misunderstood. And then he'd say, 'You're stronger than you think, and I've got your back.' I never forgot that." Jamie looked at her, eyes glistening. "You kept me sane," he replied softly. "You reminded me I was more than a character. You made me human again." That exchange, quiet, sincere, and painfully honest, changed everything. Fans around the world felt tears welling up, realizing this wasn't about romance anymore. It was about gratitude. It was about two souls who had gone through fire together and came out still holding respect and tenderness for each other. As the documentary continued, unseen footage played, clips from behind the scenes, laughter between takes, little gestures of care no one had noticed before. Dakota wrapping a blanket around Jamie between scenes. Jamie whispering, "You okay?" before every intense shot. It wasn't acting. It was trust, immortalized on film. Near the end, the interviewer asked one final question. "If you could go back 10 years and tell your younger selves something, what would it be?" Jamie thought for a moment and said, "Don't be afraid of what's real. It's the only thing that lasts." Dakota smiled through glassy eyes. "And I'd tell her, don't hide your heart, even if the world doesn't understand it." When the interview ended, they hugged, a long, quiet embrace that spoke louder than words. It wasn't about rekindling anything. It was closure. It was peace. It was a full-circle moment after 10 long years. As the screen faded to black, Dakota's voice narrated the final words. "We were never pretending. We were just two people doing our best to be honest in a world built on illusion. Maybe that's the hidden truth. That what's real never fades, no matter how much time passes." The clip spread everywhere. Fans cried. Celebrities shared it with captions like, "This is what authenticity looks like." And for the first time, both Jamie and Dakota seemed lighter, no longer burdened by speculation or old rumors. The truth had set them free. Because sometimes, love isn't about possession. It's about presence. And after 10 years, the world finally understood. They never needed to confess love to prove it existed.